And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I am Anthony Irwin of Lakers Daily, joined by Aaron Larsoul of All Access Lakers, of all over the place, places you wouldn't even think of, too. Like, just like really, really cool stuff that he does all over the place, and is always kind enough to grace us with his presence and his intel and all of these things. And he poured a nice,
I'm gonna need it today.
Sifter
I have a feeling I'm gonna need it today. Either this is gonna be like an 8-minute show, or I'm gonna need a lot of unnamed cognac.
I don't know. We'll probably split the difference
somewhere in between. Okay, yeah, a little from column A, a little from column B.
You poured the unnamed cognac, so you may as well we may as well use said unnamed cognac.
I mean, I do have a guest here that I have to get back to, but yes, continue. Let's get it.
Oh, who's this guest? Do they want to come on the show? Avery came on the show yesterday.
I saw that. I saw that on Twitter. And you know what my first thought of was, well, I was going to say, I don't know how you have a child that is that adorable, but I have met your wife. So that is clearly the answer. But what I really thought was whatever screenshot that was or video capture that it was, your camera is incredible. And I always think that my camera is always awful. So maybe I have to upgrade my setup. That was the first thing I thought, other than how adorable your daughter is.
It's so Apple came out with their desktop, with their Mac that had the HD camera for the first time, 1080p camera. And I bought that. Now, it was poor timing because I bought it and then COVID happened and I stopped having as much work to do.
So that's just that's a built-in camera? Oh, all right. Yeah, I got a whole webcam set up, and
I actually bought a webcam because they said that, like for local recordings, at least you could do 4K, but most streaming services don't offer 4K.
Yeah, but uploading that has got to be the file size on that. Look at this. I'm filibustering. See, we've taken the show from 8 minutes to 10 minutes with me filibustering about technology and streaming technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I showed Avery the episode, or the portion of the episode that she was on the TV, on the big TV that we have in our living room.
Oh, in the foyer.
And she was so happy. She was so over the moon.
Oh, she likes seeing herself. She likes seeing herself on TV. Does she like hearing herself too?
Yeah, she
actually hosts. She's vain like me. I like this.
She hosts like YouTube stuff without having a YouTube channel. Like, she helps Jen cook, and she'll be like, and today we're cutting vegetables. Here's how I cut this vegetable. And then she'll cut it, and it's totally adorable. It's totally terrifying because I know the impact this industry has had on my health and my well-being. So like but like the other option here is, like, if she's going to follow in mommy or daddy's footsteps, the other option is to go into medicine, which has somehow been more frustrating and soul breaking to.
You ready for Avery the influencer?
Yeah, I think if I had a choice, there's not as much student loan debt in influencer.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be a nepo baby. She's gonna take over this stuff one day.
Oh, there you go. Does she watch games? Does she watch games with you?
It'd be the most ironic thing for me to like whine about the bus kids for as long as I have, and then hand over this to my own child. And then it'd be even funnier if she ruins everything. Or if he, I guess, if they ruin everything, it would be exactly what I get. But
does she watch games with you?
Does she watch? Well, occasionally.
Does she care?
She does. She does.
Oh, right,
I tell her which. Right. She asks when I put on the show. When I put on a game, she'll ask which team are we rooting for, and I'll say, the white team, the gold team, the purple team.
I don't know. Or
in like very rare cases, the black team or the blue team, right? If it's a Dodgers game, and like, she doesn't really understand what's going on with the game, but when I react, she reacts with me. So
okay.
Maybe and I try to only react positively when I'm watching with her, right? Because that, like, if all she sees is me screaming at the TV, Darvin, stop playing 4 guards, then she's not going to be interested. But no, so far so good. She's really enjoyed it. And then Miles is like a hooper. Like, he just can't stop playing with his little Tykes basket. So Yeah,
I think we're giving the people what they want, except for that one person that always mentioned that when you would mention your children. I think we're giving the people what we don't need to talk about anything else. We'll talk about Avery taking over the Irwin content empire.
Anthony Irwin Productions, LLC.
Yeah, there we go. Do we have to talk about anything
else?
I think we're good.
I think I'm going to rename it someday to Cali Bear, but we'll see. But like, we're filibustering right now because we're still waiting. No, we.
Oh, all right.
Because look,
you're with me.
What am I going to do? What am I? All right, live audience.
Yes.
For those of you who are here, and there's already a decent amount of people already here.
I wonder if people think that because this happened at the time that it did, that it's an emergency episode and they missed a Twitter notification and are jumping on to hear news that hasn't happened yet.
This is when we normally go, right? Like noon,
around
noon
Pacific. Yeah, around. Yeah.
Brian
wants to know if there can be. This is a question for you. I'm willing to do this. Brian wants to know if there can be an off-season segment where I just react to white people shit. So in the comments in the YouTube comments.
No, we're going to try to, like, this offseason, we're going to try to define what that is, because as it stands right now, I'm pretty sure, like 85% sure, that white people shit is just stuff that Aaron hasn't seen yet. Like, that's like,
there's activities that I don't participate in.
Yeah.
There's other stuff. It can be shows, movies.
We're gonna get a formal designation and example list of that this
bungee
summer,
jumping, all that shit. That's why people.
But yeah,
not seasoning food.
The number one thing that I'm sure people are watching for right now is for some kind of an update on Darvin Ham and the position that he holds in the organization. I asked around yesterday because the Lakers held their exit interviews, and I asked around to see if Darvin was a part of those exit interviews, and was mostly told not really. So, like, you could take that for what you want to.
Darvin held his with the players. Post game. Well, it was post game 5 was what it was.
Dual exit interview. In that case, it was like,
sure,
it was the DAP, and we wish you well. But like I saw that Jovan is getting aggregated right now for saying that he was told that Darvin is going to be fired by the end of the week. I can confirm that as well. The anticipation was actually that it was going to happen today.
You can confirm that he is, or you can confirm that that's what you've heard?
The second one.
The latter. You have also heard what Jovan has heard. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like essentially it either is going to happen at some point today, and you'll get some kind of you'll get, the leak will happen today, and then you'll get the formal announcement today, and then we'll hear that Rob Pelinka is gonna hold a presser tomorrow, right, on a Friday. That's one scenario here that could play out. The other potential scenario, based on the stuff that I've heard to this point, is it'll be a Friday news dump with everybody gets to sit on the information over the weekend, and then Rob will hold a presser the following Monday to, kind of preview the offseason that is to be. I asked around, because I know that some people are kind of wondering, myself included at times, if Rob is the person to conduct another head coaching search. And everything that I've heard to this point is that his job is not in any jeopardy whatsoever.
Rob ain't going nowhere. Rob ain't going nowhere.
So you can kind of take that for what you will too. But as far as like this actual situation, there is no update. We're all just sitting here waiting. And, I think it is an overcorrection to the flack that they got for the way that they fired Frank. That isn't to say that they shouldn't have corrected. I thought that they did Frank kind of dirty, making him answer questions in his own post-game presser about his firing. Not ideal. that said, like Darvin Ham was already talking after the game about his Lakers tenure in the past.
All right, so let me push back a little bit. If you know, this, I'm having to do the Hoop Collective / low post as to not get aggregated. So they always say if. So if Darvin ends up not being the coach of the Lakers for next season, and if he is, if that happens, whatever, today, tomorrow, or in the next week or whenever, like, what different? I mean, have the Lakers lost anything by it being a couple of days or a week different? Like, are they losing out on candidates otherwise, do you think?
Candidates?
Like, what is the downside? The fact that, like, let's say the Lakers are taking their time weighing options, whatever reasoning is, or let's just say it's to your assertion or assumption maybe that it's an overcorrection to the reaction that they got from the timing of Frank. Like, what is being lost here for another day or week is, I guess, would be my pushback.
Week pushes it. I think week, like within, like if you're sitting here a week from now, and I think at that point,
well, like, outside of the PR parts of it, what, like,
well, but like the PR does kind of matter here, right? Like, I'm putting myself in Darvin's shoes, right? And everybody right now is talking about me as if I've already been fired. That's got to kind of suck, you know? And I think, like, for the Lakers, they have to figure out a way to do this better, right? Like, and I know that, like, again, like, PR is this really weird, ambiguous value that people make way too much money off of. Like, but the reason that they make a lot of money off of it is because when it's done well, it is legitimately really valuable, right? And, you know, part of the reason that they're doing this is for future candidates and with the coaches union and the fraternity that is, you know, current and former head coaches.
So if, and I think there's merit to what you were saying, that last part, I think there's merit to that. So if that is the case, then maybe that overcorrection or assumed overcorrection to what you asserted earlier. Yeah, the potential overcorrection and delaying this a little bit, maybe that's a positive thing, right? Maybe it's like you want to appear as though you're really weighing all the options and not making a rash decision. And to the stakeholders, outside stakeholders, to your point, the other, you know, the coaches association, the players association, you know, the agents, coaches, agents, you know, maybe this is an attempt to try to mend some of those fences from the Frank situation.
Yeah, I think a correction was in order. I have no problem with a correction. Overcorrection makes it, you know, it takes that into the territory where it's like a little too much, right? And again,
yes, if something material is lost, then I would agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't think something material is going to be lost. It's very early in this thing. There are still a ton of coaches that I'm actually surprised there weren't more coaches fired this year.
Well, we also don't know what the candidate pool is going to look like because the playoffs have some, you know, obviously have some impact on this, as we've seen from
one candidate in particular.
Well, I mean, like we can just go back, you know, like somebody who doesn't have a job right now is Mike Budenholzer. The reason he doesn't have a job right now is because, you know, for a couple of years after winning a title, it didn't go particularly well in the playoffs for Milwaukee. So my point, and you know, Frank is in Phoenix because of the playoff struggles and some of the personality struggles, but Monty had those playoff struggles in Phoenix. So yeah, I don't think that. And by the way, that could be if here I'm doing it again. If the Lakers do decide to move on from Darvin, part of the calculus is who is going to be the next guy. And I do think NBA teams, this is not a Lakers thing specific, I do think NBA teams often are and fans even more so than teams, but teams make this mistake too of saying, well, this is not the guy. The follow-up question that they don't ask is then, okay, then whom? And so that list is probably going to change. And some candidates may come off the board, but there are probably going to be candidates that are added to the board based on whatever happens in these playoffs. So that's the timing of it is all an interesting. And I will say this, if again, here, I'm not going to do it again, but if the Lakers do decide to move on from Darvin Ham, the Lakers job is obviously very desirable. So the Lakers should have a pretty good ability to attract, whatever their top choice candidates are. Assuming LeBron is back, the getting to coach LeBron and AD is going to be appealing for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think that like their treatment of Vogel or even Ham would detract from the opportunity that would be coaching LeBron and AD in the spot. And also, like, look, I think whoever they hire, there's going to be an amount of patience, to like they're going to have the first crack at coaching the Lakers after LeBron, right? And getting the opportunity to kind of lead them into that next chapter. But so like I don't know. For me, it's just I understand some of the correction. I understand, the way that they handle some of their stuff. And I understand that this is still a learning process for an organization that is still relatively new in the positions that they hold, right? Like the most experienced person is in their positions is probably Kurt Rambis, right? Like in terms of like time around the sport. And you obviously have somebody like Bill Burka who has been in the sport for, decades and decades and decades and stuff. But in terms of like the people who,
I mean, Jeannie's been around, that's like the distinction between current role. Like, Jeannie is quite accomplished and has been around basketball and the Lakers in various capacities for quite a while.
Yeah, I think, well, no, what I mean, like, because she will be the person, like one of the first people to tell you that she kind of stays out of the basketball aspect of this, right? She employs and empowers her basketball people.
Yes.
And that's how she's always done this, right? She's always been more focused on the business than the basketball.
Well, that is a lesson from her father.
Mm-hmm.
Find the best people you can and then get out of their way, basically.
Yeah. And so like in that regard, right? Like if she has always been she's always backed off, right? And she's experienced in her own way by being around her dad and, Jerry West and Mitch Kupchak and so on and so forth. But like still, it's still a team that you really get the feel that they are learning on the fly, right? And when you go from, firing or handling Luke Walton even as their first example of like firing a head coach, right? Where Magic quits and he says that the reason he quit when he did was because he wanted to tweet a bunch more. And there's all kinds of other reasons that are lesser known or whatever. But like, he said he knew that he had to quit once he wasn't allowed to fire Luke Walton. And then Luke Walton gets fired anyway, and
yeah, you and I have this conversation, not this specific conversation. Sorry to interrupt you. You and I have not this specific conversation a lot about this instance, but the conception behind it, which is I am always telling you that you feel like the Lakers are unique in certain ways, and I'm telling you they're not. And your pushback is I don't give a shit because like I care about the Lakers. But to put this in context, like we'll use the Lakers draft as an example, right? This last draft or any draft, but we'll use this as an example because as it stands now, it does not appear to have gone well for the Lakers. As it stands now, those things can change. There were people that were all in on JHS, and there were people that were less so, and there were people that were out, and these kind of, right? Like for any decision that gets made by a front office is made up, and front offices are made up of a certain X number of people. Some it's, 3 people that have real power, and there's 8 people involved and 20 people on the outside. Sometimes there's 1 person that has the power and there's 8 people in the inner circle, whatever the numbers are. There's going to be disagreement on all this. So the fact that Magic wanted to, or claims he wanted to, get rid of Luke, and there were some dissenting voices, like, that is not an uncommon thing. That's how these things work. You don't care because you're a Lakers fan and you're only right. Like, my point is, the Lakers are not some outlier in the fact that there is not like consensus in these kind of decisions.
I mean, they'd be completely screwed if they were the only team that had disagreement, or they would be in a really good position, because there would be more honesty in organizations that there is debate internally on all of this stuff, right? Like, Jen and I have been together for 20 years, almost literally.
Oh God.
And I can
you and I have chosen different paths in life, brother.
I can recall over the course of our relationship, how many friends have been in different relationships and new relationships, and relationships end, and all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, that especially as we've been together longer, that people will kind of ask us, on how did you make it work? I think the number one reason, the number one way that you can make this work is completely outkick your coverage. That's it. But like, first though, like in actuality, you need conflict. Conflict is a big part of this, and you need to understand how to handle that conflict, how to disagree and come to some kind of understanding, whether it's a compromise or one person winds up being right.
This is how the Lakers front office is like Anthony's marriage on Lakers Lounge.
Well, no, like I think, because like there is nothing that, like Jen and I will meet, relationships or girlfriends or boyfriends or significant others, that like people bring, people we care about will go on a double date, or we would go on double dates and stuff like that back when that was still more of a thing. Now we live in a neighborhood where everybody's married and has kids, so like you don't worry about that as much. But when dating was more of a thing, and like the people that, if we went out with a couple and they've been together for a few months, and they'll say like, oh man, we finish each other's sentences. We never, ever disagree about anything. We are like, everything is just amazing. We never, ever, ever, ever fight. And I'm like, oh, so you're lying all the time.
Huh?
Like one of you is always lying. Like,
huh? You said what now? Huh?
like what you're telling me is that like one of you is holding a bunch back for the sake of not, having that conflict and having to deal with that conflict. And so I, when you say that there is, like with Jalen Hood-Schifino was the example that you used, and how
Luke Walton,
or Luke Walton or whatever, how there is dissent, or there is, disagreement on something like that. Like, of course there is. There are too many people involved for everybody to just get along. And if there wasn't any conflict there, then somebody would be lying.
It's not that there's never consensus. It's just that there's rarely consensus. It's not never. It's just not often.
Yeah. And so anyway, like, on this one, without going into too much detail here, because, Frank, I don't want to like overexpose myself or anybody here, but there is, from what I've been able to tell, relative consensus here, pretty damn close to consensus, that most people,
that there is never consensus. It's that there is rarely consensus.
but like I think most people involved with the decision that has to be made on whether to keep or fire Darvin Ham, based on my reading of the situation, is that everybody kind of understands it's time to move on, and it's just a matter of if versus when. And it's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. and we'll see when that happens, right? The two scenarios that I have found to be more likely than others is either A, it happens sometime today and we get a press conference from Rob tomorrow, or B, it happens tomorrow and Rob takes a presser on Monday when they've had more time to kind of wrap their heads around where they're going to go next, and when there's a more complete picture of what their options might be. By the time that we get to Monday, the first round will have been complete for everybody. And
right?
so,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yep. And so like that, that gives you a little bit more understanding and ammunition for what you look and ready. Cause I feel like it's pretty rare that coaches get fired after being in the second round of a playoffs. You win a series, and generally speaking, you tend to get another crack at it the following year.
Making the conference semis. Yeah, I mean, it happens occasionally where that's not good enough, but yes, I think
like I'm looking at the teams who are likely going to be in the second round of the playoffs next year, and there isn't a coach that, like, if they lose in the second round of the playoffs, that they are going to be fired. Right?
You don't think Michael Malone's out if the Nuggets lose to Minnesota? You don't think just Michael Malone's just hit the bricks, buddy?
If he was a Lakers coach, there'd probably be.
No, you don't think just hit the bricks, buddy? No?
I would probably have already recorded a podcast. Like, are we sure about Mike?
Mark Daigneault, who just led the youngest team in the history of ever to win a playoff series and was the coach of the year, and they were the 1 seed. So no, you don't. If Mark Daigneault, if OKC,
look, if OKC's dumb enough to do it,
the Clips and
swoop
Clips
on in,
winner. No, you don't think Mark's out?
He would immediately become like super duper rich, right?
Wait, say that again.
Like if the Thunder somehow, for whatever dumb reason, fired Mark Daigneault without like something,
I would say he would be very popular on the market if that were to happen.
He would be very, very rich.
I would say he'd be the LinkedIn head coach. Do you know about this?
No.
When he was hired by the Thunder, people went to go search for him, right? And he didn't have a Wikipedia page, but what he had was, they found his LinkedIn, because if you search for the name. He literally, when he got hired by the Thunder, didn't have a Wikipedia yet. That's how unknown he was. And by the way, good on the Thunder, because they found one. But so when you search his name, what people found was his LinkedIn page, and it was his resume as a basketball coach. That, by the way, was up to date. Like, he was looking for a coaching job on LinkedIn. So yeah, he's called the LinkedIn coach.
I actually think that there's a. Do you remember Dave Miller, the guy who used to talk on Spectrum?
I saw him at Game 4. Yep, I know Dave. Yep.
Does he have a tie back to the Showtime Lakers? Because he took that picture with the Showtime Lakers. Was he like an assistant on any of those teams?
I'm not sure, but I know he's been. And I don't know if he's coached in the NBA. He's had a ton of college jobs. And I think he has worked for NBA teams in various capacities, but I don't know that he's never been a head coach of an NBA team. I don't know that he's been an assistant. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I know he was, I think, Arizona. I know USC. He coached at USC. So, but yes, I know who he is. I saw him in Game 4, actually.
His LinkedIn has all of his coaching stops on it.
Oh, all right. Well, then you can answer. Then you can answer that question yourself. Just hit his head on
I don't
over
remember.
To his LinkedIn.
I don't recall. Like, I just saw him on LinkedIn, and I just like really quickly ran. That guy hated me.
Oh,
hated me.
Okay.
From my earlier days covering this team. But anyway,
I would say he's polarizing. I would say he's polarizing.
I think he wound up being kind of a scam artist with his coaching.
Allegedly.
I don't know that we need to.
You're right. I don't know that we need to.
But anyway, like I said, that is the situation. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, that there is not, like, they could wait until later next week, and there's a possibility that they keep the guy. It would be a gigantic upset that would surprise basically everybody, actually literally everybody I have spoken to on this subject. But it could happen, it could happen. But I am still told that the likeliest scenario here is that Darvin Ham will not be back next year as the head coach of the Lakers. And the Lakers are, for whatever reason that they're coming to, or whatever reason they're using right now, kind of taking their time on this, and we'll see what that looks like after this. Aaron, I'm not gonna like ask you about Darvin here because for obvious reasons, but let's do the if thing with Darvin. And if Darvin is let go, is there any one character trait that you would look for? Like, is there to like, if Darvin isn't their coach next year, is there one character trait that you would look for in their next head coach candidate?
No, but here's what I will say is that, and it doesn't mean this would, if Darvin is not the coach, it doesn't mean this is what the Lakers will do. However, most, and Daniel Rodriguez is in the comments asking about Juwan Howard. Is there any more Juwan Howard talk? No, he signed on as an assistant elsewhere, so no.
With Brooklyn.
Yeah. So what teams will often do, you talked about an overcorrection, in the PR sense, that maybe if Darvin is not going to be around, maybe that's the holdup. That tends to be the case with head coaching hires also. Insofar as if whatever the outgoing head coach is most known for, the person that you bring in to fix whatever the problem was generally is on the other side of the spectrum from that. So if you have an offensive coach, you usually bring in a defensive coach. If you have, if you have an old grizzled veteran, you usually bring in like fresh blood, new meat, whatever you want to call it, like a player's coach. If it's a player's coach that's outgoing, you often try to find a disciplinarian. So teams often overcorrect for whatever they saw as flaws in the previous coach. So do with that as you will. But no, I don't think there's one thing specifically. I think you just go and try to find the best candidate available. If you try to find the best coach available, if Darvin is not around. The other thing to be cognizant of, and this is not a Lakers thing, this is not about right now, is that you have, when hiring a coach, you have to be, or you should be, again, I said teams, not the Lakers specifically. Teams are just bad at this. But you have to be cognizant of where in a team's life cycle you are. And does that match up with whatever you feel are the best qualities of the new coach? And if you have a roster that has more flexibility versus less flexibility, you can switch this up. But it makes sense to, and the Lakers do not have a lot of roster flexibility. It's not none, but the Lakers do not have a lot of roster flexibility. So then you also probably want to try to be aware of a coach that fits. You don't want to do, what is it, square peg, round hole kind of thing.
Yeah.
You kind of want to look at coaches that are going to naturally tend towards whatever you have. As opposed to, often you want to, you want the coach and then you kind of can bring in, and New York, the Knicks are a great example of this, right? They've had Tibbs. Basically everybody that has played for them in this series they've acquired in the last 2 years. And all these dudes are like in Tibbs' image, right? They're grinders. They're less thought of. It's like very New York, right? They're like, they play hard. They're angry. They'll play 48 minutes every single night for Tibbs. Like exactly.
Teams.
Right. So, and they've brought all these guys in, and they just mesh incredibly well with Tibbs. So if the Lakers are, stuck is too strong a word, but the Lakers roster is what it is, and there's not a lot of flexibility. Obviously, the Lakers can make a trade in the offseason. That could change. But so I think it's important to bring somebody in that is, if Darvin is gone, I think it's important to bring somebody in that is appropriate for the life cycle of the team currently and the roster. So that will play to the strengths of the guys that are on the roster. Right. Otherwise, you can end up with like
with Darvin Ham all over again. Like
you can end up with like more specifically, you could end up with like Mike D'Antoni, who's like starting Earl Clark and sitting Pau Gasol, right? Like because he's so tied to his thing that didn't fit the roster. Like you're putting a Hall of Famer on the bench for Earl that Clark kind of thing.
Yeah. Although I will say Earl Clark was a fantasy Hall of Famer that year.
He had a great dude. It was like his rookie year. He was walking around. Do you remember the backpack? It was like Hello Kitty or My Little Pony or something. He had a great backpack. It was great. Little pink backpack was awesome.
Yeah, I agree with all of that essentially, that like, and that actually was what kind of frustrated me with the Ham hiring in the first place, was like, you're hiring a rookie head coach to a LeBron team that has title aspirations, and there's a world where it works out. Like I actually think on top of hiring a rookie head coach, I think where they really kind of hurt themselves was not having him hire a former head coach to help like walk him through some of the coach player dynamics, right?
But that was that is what Darvin's best known for, right? The coach player dynamic thing is what he's.
Yeah, but I think it's different when you're an assistant coach.
Is delicious.
Yeah, I see.
Can we move on? Because I'm going to say that we need to move on to off season because.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say though is like I wanted to add to what you were saying there. All is right. Again, to use your verbiage so that I don't get you in trouble or anybody in trouble. If Darvin Ham is let go and the Lakers go out and hire somebody else, whoever they bring in has to be able to hold LeBron accountable and has to be able to hold Anthony Davis accountable. And frankly, just put in a culture that holds more players accountable, because like I can understand a rookie head coach or a second-year head coach having some issue holding LeBron James accountable for stuff. Like I understand how that's going to go sometimes. What drove me insane was that it never felt like he held anybody accountable, right? Like Torian, you didn't need to go ISO with 14 seconds left on the shot clock on that possession. We didn't need that there. Gabe Vincent, you've made 3 field goals all playoffs. Maybe hold off on the whole, like he came in, I think, in the second half and immediately pulled an ISO 3 over Aaron Gordon. And I was like, why? And
yeah, with LeBron calling for the ball.
Yeah, right.
Like walking up to
same goes on the other end of it, right? Where there's a play that was making the rounds where Torian, actually it was on the game winner that Jamal Murray made, where Torian is like, step up, Rui, step up, Rui, step up, Rui. And he's like literally pushing Rui into help there. And had Rui stepped up like a second earlier, Jamal Murray doesn't have as clean as a look as he got when he made that series ending jumper.
No, to be fair, Austin made that tough.
Oh, for sure. No, I think Austin.
Yes, I guess it would be less. I guess it would be less. But Austin had
did
as well as
like
you can do,
standing where he needed to be, and obviously people knew that he needed to be standing somewhere else, right? Torian is like saying, "Step up, step up." I got these because Torian could have split the difference there. Yeah, he had an angle to develop. I
wasn't sure why Rui was in the game to begin with, but
well, I mean that gets back to why the current guy might no longer be.
So you want to talk about off-season priority list, huh?
We will. But that's the part, like where I felt like Darvin has lacked the most to this point has been the implementation and consistent hammering home of team-wide culture. And that's something that whoever they hire next, that's I think where the focus should be. And you can still do that with LeBron as your leader, I think. The right coach, if you hire the right coach, and if he gets fired by the Los Angeles Clippers, that coach can, I think, work with LeBron to implement that culture. Anyway, let's move on to the offseason priority list. Obviously, the top priority is the LeBron's contract situation, figuring that out, understanding what that's going to look like, and the math behind that. what I can say right now is that most of the people that I've spoken with, both close to the Lakers and throughout the league, are fairly confident that LeBron will be back.
I suspect LeBron will be back.
Yeah. Woj is out there saying that he spoke to Rich Paul, and the inclination he got there is that LeBron will be back. So, it's just a matter again of what the math is going to look like, the length of the contract, the terms, all of that stuff. So I'm going to operate with this like look ahead to the rest of the offseason as if LeBron is back.
Mm-hmm.
You have Anthony Davis's extension, I think, kicking in next year, right? Also, you have Jared Vanderbilt's extension kicking in next year. Austin Reeves will be in the second year of his new contract. And, same goes for Rui Hachimura. And we, I guess, need to see what D'Angelo Russell does with his player option.
Same with Gabe.
And, I guess you have Max Christie as a restricted free agent. I would anticipate he'll probably be back. I don't think the market is like booming for Max Christie, seeing as he couldn't get any playing time over Cam Reddish. So what would be like, we can go micro or macro here. What would be like at the top of your priority list here, if you're building out the roster going into next season?
So the Lakers, well, I guess we have to figure out what exceptions the Lakers are going to have. Probably taxpayer mid-level again. Non-taxpayer full mid-level again, which is what Gabe got. That was shaved off a little bit, but he was carved out of the non-taxpayer. So that's going to be the question, and what you do with that, because that's going to be, other than some trade and whatever, that's possible, not necessarily likely, but so the question is going to be the biggest with the roster as it is now. The biggest tool that the Lakers are going to have is that exception, and the question is going to be much like it was last year. Do you split it up and get 2 guys or 3 guys or 4 guys? Because that's the only way basically you can get non-minimum guys, or do you go and give it all of it or almost all of it to try to get somebody of a higher stature? I think the Lakers need
a higher statue, meaning like
yeah, the Kobe statue, the finger's up a little bit higher.
Oh no, I meant like it's an Iverson situation where they gave him like a bobblehead and they're like, all right, we're finally going to give you a proper
that thing looked like an MVP trophy. Right? It was like the size of an MVP, the NBA MVP trophy. If you can wheel the statue on a little table like into the arena, what are we doing here?
I don't think Allen Iverson should be able to hold his own statue.
Correct. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So I think conceptually the Lakers need better support of LeBron and Anthony Davis. What does that look like? It looks like more size, like an actual starting-ish caliber, high-level backup, low-level starter center. Somebody that can play with AD.
And with AD.
Yes. Somebody you could, yes. Which brings the question, like, okay, then is AD a 4 now again, and LeBron's a 3? That has ripple effects. I don't want LeBron even a year older having to guard 3s all the time. Anyway, that's a different question. But I think the Lakers need someone 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet, 7'1", that is good enough that you have to ask the question, should they start at 5 or should they be AD's backup at 5? Outside of that, I think what the Lakers need most is two-way players, as big as possible, but two-way guys that, I mean, look, these are not going to be max level guys. So there's going to be, at best, there's going to be a whatever 12 or $13 million guy. And that's if you just use it by itself, the exception by itself. And that's what everybody's looking for. But somebody that is good enough on both sides of the ball that whoever the coach is, Darvin or otherwise, doesn't have to make the calculus like, well, I can use this guy here, but if I use him here, we're going to be in trouble over here. Somebody just solid that can stay on the floor in playoff games, because they're not a complete liability on one end or the other, right? Rui's not going to guard anybody. Rui's a good offensive player. He didn't play well in this series. Rui's a good offensive player. He's not going to guard anybody. He's big and can get in the way because he's big and athletic. He doesn't use those tools to my liking. He's just not a very good defensive player. D'Lo the same way, right?
Especially
D'Lo,
when he isn't scoring. Like when
and that's the thing. Like if you're not gonna, and D'Lo, right? D'Lo, Rui, the same thing. Like if you're not gonna go get a bucket, what are you doing here? So guys that you don't have to make that kind of situation calculus. I think the Lakers need to get more athletic. And I think that the Lakers, and some of this ties to the athleticism. I think the Lakers need some more tryhards, just guys that play hard, play energy over 82 games. And maybe they're not really playoff players, but during the regular season, they are able to make up for the energy and effort and little plays that it's not reasonable. Fair doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's just not reasonable to ask LeBron and AD to do that 82 times a year. It just isn't. It's like, it's not a reasonable ask. So I think the Lakers need some tryhards. The kind of guys that other teams hate, other teams fans hate, because they're like, why are you playing so hard? You're not particularly good. Like, stop playing so hard.
Yeah.
And like Vando fits into this too, right? Because Vando is big enough to support LeBron and AD. He's a really good defensive player. He has his deficiencies offensively, obviously, but he plays hard all the time, and he's athletic and he's big. So I do think that he would have helped. He would have made a difference. But to answer your question, a big, like a borderline starter level center, a wing, hopefully, that you don't have to make a ton of concessions on in the playoffs. They can play two ways, and then some athletic tryhards.
Yeah, I agree with 3 out of 3 there. Especially the tryhard aspect of it. Like, you watch the Lakers this year, and there was just so little motor around the roster where, like, I think Reeves is a fairly high motor guy. D'Lo is a low motor guy. Rui, if he isn't scoring, is a low motor guy. Taurean Prince is kind of low motor too. Gabe Vincent, I think, has a higher motor, and I think they missed that motor this year. I think same goes for Jared Vanderbilt, is an extremely high motor guy. But they need more than a couple of those, right? It shouldn't, like, I saw Dan Wojcicki, and I'm not even necessarily disagreeing, but he said that, like, Darvin got killed for his quote on injuries and stuff like that. And I also am one of the people who would kill him on that. Cause like, if Eric Spoelstra isn't making excuses publicly for not having Jimmy Butler, then I don't think it's a very good look for you to make excuses based off of not having Jared Vanderbilt personally. But like that said, they did really miss their two kind of highest motor guys this year, who both missed extensive amounts of time this season. And I think the Lakers basically can't put them in a spot again where they only have two high motor guys and would thus be really missing them if either or both of them are missing. So,
well, by the way, some of this is that there's a bunch of player options coming up, decisions to make for next season. So, like, in some ways, the Lakers' hands are kind of tied, right? With there just aren't going to be that many roster spots. If everybody picks up their player option, there just aren't a bunch of roster spots. Obviously, part of this has to do with D'Lo's decision. So, and by the way, that will impact, whether it's taxpayer or non-taxpayer mid-level, which further complicates the, going to the grocery store and picking the fruit or vegetable you want. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Lakers, because there are a lot of decisions the Lakers have to make, and there are a lot of decisions that the Lakers don't get to make, right? I think it's Jackson. I think Jackson has a player option. I think Cam has a player option, and maybe I think there's like 3 or 4 player options. Hold on, I'll look really quick. Yeah, it's Christian, Jackson, and Cam all have player options.
And D'Lo. Yeah,
and D'Lo does too. Well, and I guess LeBron does too. But I mean, like at the back end of the roster, that just simply cut into roster, spaces. So if those guys all pick them up, then, that's like 13 of the 15 spots spoken for already.
Well, you aren't beholden to them. Like, they're minimum guys, so you could technically waive them, or you could trade them or whatever.
Sure, you can, but that has ramifications also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other part of this too that like I would like addressed this year, like as a general rule, don't acquire anybody shorter than like 6'3". Like, I'm good. We're good. You have enough of those guys. You have Gabe, you have Austin, and yeah, that does mean I am. You can't talk specifically about anybody, but that does mean that I'm good on the Trae Young or Donovan Mitchell experiences. I'm good. I don't like. I didn't watch the Denver Nuggets series now twice in a row and think to myself, man, if the Lakers had another 6 foot person, they would have them right where they want them.
All right, so now you got me. See, now I got me putting my Hennessy down. I will say that I was not longing for the Lakers to have more small people on the floor. I will agree with that, but I think that's an oversimplification, because what the Lakers did need was somebody to go get buckets. And those two people that you mentioned, I'm not even suggesting that they are Lakers targets, but those two people that you mentioned are some bucket getters. Those are guys that you put the ball in their hand and they're going to go get you a bucket.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I didn't think that offense was the problem this year. They just couldn't get a stop.
No. Offense wasn't the problem this year. Offense was the problem in the playoffs.
I don't think it was.
Offense was the problem.
They couldn't get a stop. When Denver decided they needed a bucket, they got a bucket. Like, one way or another, they always got a bucket. I think their offensive rating down the stretches of those clutch minutes against the Lakers was nearing 200. Like,
sure, but the rest of the game counts.
You could round up to 200 if with those clutch minutes on Denver's part. That was a defensive issue to me.
No, okay. So in the last couple minutes, what I'm saying is the last, like, in general, I think this series was lost on the offensive end. Like, we can go back. Hold on, I'm looking for it now, but no, these are not updated yet. But like the Lakers, there was the game that the Lakers won, whatever, was in the high. They were in the high 1-teens, I think. But other than that, it was a lot of like 101-99.
Wasn't it?
That's
nice?
An offensive problem. No, it wasn't nice. No, it was
nice.
not.
I'm
older than you. Like, no, I'm the old one.
No, I've been an old soul my whole life.
Yeah, but I'm older than you.
I love Frank Sinatra.
I love Dean Martin. You have an old basketball soul. You're yelling at clouds right now about.
No, I've an old soul generally. Like, I love the Rat Pack. I love all of that stuff. Like, that's just, I'm an old person.
To some of the people in the chat, I will agree with that. I do think rebounding was an issue for the Lakers.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. It was basically, hey AD, just go get all of them, because everybody else, like, eh.
Yeah, and I think also that's a culture issue again, because like you look at these teams with coaches that hold guys accountable, and they're at the very least putting bodies on guys, right? Like, at the very least, there's a forearm hitting a chest. There's at least some kind of barrier between an offensive player and a rebound. And oftentimes this year, a shot would go up, and you would look at everybody on the court, and their hands would drop down to their sides, and they would just kind of like wander aimlessly towards the basket, while
that goes to
the opposing team runs by them.
So that is why that is crystallizing my point from earlier about what the offseason looks like, or what like the Lakers need some guys where putting an elbow in your chest, putting a body on you, boxing out, getting in your jersey defensively is what they do. It's the reason why they're in the NBA. Right? Like, AD's a fantastic defensive player. He's the best two-way player the Lakers have. He's also the best player the Lakers have. LeBron is still a great offensive player. He's a mediocre to below average defensive player until he turns it up, and then he's fine. But yeah, he can't do it all the time. It's going to be year 22. D'Lo just gets buckets. Rui gets buckets. Austin mostly is in the NBA because he's a talented offensive player. He tries. He's going to guard you a little bit. But Vando is the only look. The same is true of Christian Wood. Christian Wood's a bucket getter. Gabe will guard you a little bit, but make shots. Dinwiddie just gets buckets. And so I think the Lakers need more of the guys who the reason, like, you don't have to ask them. You don't have to convince them to go do that. It's what they do. It's why they're in the NBA, is to make the other team's life uncomfortable, put an elbow in your chest, box you out, go get a loose ball. I mean, the last guy, especially of the big guys, the last guy the Lakers had like that was Dwight, who and I think
Pat, right? They had Pat for a little bit, and
Pat Bev,
you know, but like for the most part, you're right. Like it has been a steady stream of offensive minded players, and I don't know. I'm cool with that method or that approach. Like go out and, because again, when the Lakers won their championship, they had Caruso, defensive minded guy. You had KCP at that time, much more defensive minded. He could knock down open shots and stuff like that, but he was much more defensive minded. Kuz was obviously more offensive minded. AD, best defender that I've ever seen, and then LeBron at that point was like, you know, much more of a two-way impact player.
The other part of that is
you had Avery Bradley, you had
those
Dwight,
guys are big for their positions Rondo too, right? So the Lakers could go to the AD at center lineup and still could be huge, like have a huge lineup, right? With Kuz and LeBron in the front court, you know, 6'9" and 6'10", and you know, Caruso is pretty big for the position. KCP is not small. He's a little slight, but he's not small. Danny Green is not a small guy. Like,
yeah. Get back to that. Like the like, I know that I probably sound like a broken record, you know, given how often I say go back to that 1920 team, but I'm going to continue to be a broken record on that front. We have one super comment here that I'm going to answer before we send you guys on your merry ways. And that means I get to do this. God King Tony Clifton writing, assuming Houston/Orlando wants to go star hunting, would you trade our first for young athletic players who can contribute? Houston has Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. I don't think that, like, it's probably not great that a team like that would be looking to shed those players as they look to win. And if you are looking to win and acquiring those players, it's probably not great. We'll see, you know, with Smith is interesting, right? He's
no chance. He was the second pick in the draft, our third pick in the draft, like 2 years ago. No chance.
Yeah, and he finally started doing some stuff towards the end of the season. And he's
they
legitimately
love Tari Eason, by the way.
We're probably like 2-3 years from him being like one of those defenders, Smith, like Herb Jones, like those kinds of, good God, what are you doing out there, defenders?
Yeah,
what do you do against
10, 6'11"? Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, God King Tony wanted me to say something earlier, and because he put the super chat in, I will oblige him. He wanted me to say something bad about Darvin. I don't think Darvin had a great season. There you go, God King Tony. There you go. Because you put the super chat in, I adhered to your wishes. I don't think Darvin was great this year.
Yeah. You know what? We agree. We'll go ahead and send everybody on their way with us in agreement. Aaron, thank you very much for hopping on. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in the way you have. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching there. If you're on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to subscribe there. And if you're listening to this in podcast form the following morning, well, hopefully you're waking up to some news or something like that. And if not, then I guess we'll just talk to you when we talk to you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.